Welcome to A Shelter in a Time of Storm. My name is Roger Comstock. I'm the minister for the Morrison Church of Christ in Morrison, Tennessee. If you've watched our program in the past, you may realize that we deal with some very difficult subjects on this program and things that bring storms into people's lives. We've been doing a series of programs with Brother Ricky Hagan. He is a full bird colonel, in the United States Army, and he's been with us for these past several programs as we've talked about post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. He deals with both of those in his life, and so these programs have been intended and designed to try to inform everyone, but in particular to encourage those who may be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury, particularly veterans, to encourage them to get the help that is available to make their lives better and make the lives of the people around them better. And so again, as I said, this has been a series of programs, but let me introduce to you our special guest, Colonel Ricky Hagan. He is, as I said, a full bird colonel, and has been kind enough and he's exposed himself enough in verbally to share his inner battles, his inner struggles with us, again, with the hope that we may be able to help someone or encourage someone to get help. Brother Ricky is a Christian and is attending a school of preaching in addition to his other duties, and we're just honored to have him. And Brother Ricky, welcome again. Thank you for being here with us. We've covered a lot of ground in our previous programs, and I don't want to, we obviously don't need to rehash all of that, but one of the things that we have not talked about is some things that, some symptoms or some signs, some things that people can look for, whether family members or the individual that may have the post-traumatic stress disorder. What are some typical signs or symptoms of this disorder?
Well, it's going to vary from soldier to soldier, person to person, but collectively, you got some of the same things that we're all going to have in common. There's an edge there. There's a constant edge. There's a paranoia there. When every time I go into a restaurant or somewhere like that, that's one of the first things, and I'm sure every veteran that's watching this will say the same thing. I want a chair where I got my back to the wall. Mm-hmm. When I first come back, it was constant. If you walk down the sidewalk, you're checking, you're scanning rooftops, and the crowd when you go in a restaurant. I do it in church. I still do it. You're calculating and you're scanning your objective and what kind of threat might be there. It's always a threat analysis because you've taken it to the ultimate extreme. It's life or death. Mm-hmm. The fight or flight syndrome, and once we talked about that in some of the early series, your adrenaline level just goes through the roof, and there's no way to measure that. When I watched a little documentary the other day on a guy. There's a VA thing, and he was talking about his PTSD, and he called his home the bunker. And I can relate to that because it's a compound. And when you're dealing with this stuff and you don't get help, it's like a prison. You're in. But that was his safe zone. He didn't have to go out. You remember the story when we went to the store the first time, and he don't want to deal with nobody. He didn't want to deal with people, but his whole family knew that something's wrong. And then all these triggers come when you're having to deal with this stuff of people, coming at you, asking questions, going, through their nonchalant life, and it comes back to, and it's funny. This series said that too. It's developing that understanding relationship. you know, if you've never been, let's do it like this. You never lost a child. I have friends that have, and they've never got over it.
Right.
You know, 25, 30 years later, their life's just been miserable. And, you know, it's easy to sit back and do that armchair quarterback thing and Monday morning and say, this is what I would do and this is what I would do. And the guy mentioned with tears in his eyes on the series I was watching that, you know, that this ain't Hollywood.
Yeah.
When you really see death, when you really see body parts, when you really smell it and hear the screams and cries and I mean it changes you forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And you know there's common symptoms, there's common triggers, but some don't make it, some don't come back. You know, some take it to the extreme, some kill themselves, some kill, you know, we see it all the time where somebody does some domestic rage or something, you know.
So that and that cautiousness, if I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but that comes out of the paranoia. Is that what you're saying about constantly looking around you and being aware, very aware of your environment and what's going on around you? And I suspect you probably look for escape routes.
Absolutely.
But does that, can you separate, does that come out of your intense training, or is that, and then it's just exasperated by the paranoia?
Great point, because I was going to go there with the training. The American soldier is the greatest weapon in the world, no doubt, bar none. And he's trained to be to eliminate the target. So with that, in one hand, you're training him to be the best in the world, and then, you know, combine that with a whole company, battalion, brigade, division, etc. You know, that's what you've got coming at you. So if I'm the enemy, I would be worried when you got the United States Army coming after you. On the other hand, when you bring that back down, you know, we talked about this in one of the series. Where's the outlet? Where are you going to go with it? What are you going to do with it?
That adrenaline.
So in the battlefield, it's a common denominator, because you get up, everybody looks the same, you're dressing the same, you're eating the same. The camaraderie is so strong. We talked about that too. If the church family was as strong as the military family, how great that would be. Yeah. But it comes back. We so much take care of one another. And then when you come out in the civilian world, which this guy mentioned the same thing I'm about to say, you know, we have a really hard time adjusting to a point where we would lay down my life for you or Frank or whoever, or a total stranger. Mm-hmm. You come back home and the Americans in general, for the most part, are so selfish. Yeah. All about me. Yeah. Everything's all about me. You know, can you rub my feet, cut my food up in little pieces, whatever it is, wait on me. Right. And then, you know, it comes back to that, you know, calm down. You know, calm down. You know, what's wrong with you? You know, it's never going to work. That's never going to work that way. And then, you know, the setups, I've played this out many times in churches of, you know, I know the doors, I know what's locked, I know when they lock it, I know who's sitting where, and that kind of thing. But I fully believe, you know, in this church it had cameras, you know, it had locks. There's a reason for that, because we're not in a society where we used to be.
That's right. You're exactly right.
And things going forward. And you know, you try to talk to some of these people, and it's like, you know, just let me give them a Starbucks, and calm down. You know, you're so over dramatic, and it's no, that's not right. And when you work for the IC, the intelligence community, like I do, and you know things, and even a dummy that's paying attention could see that these things is going on in Paris and Belgium and places. These are playgrounds. Yeah. You know, they hate us. They're coming here.
Yeah. And I find more and more that the security for a congregation when we're in worship, the last thing we should have to think about, particularly as American citizens, is whether somebody's going to come in and do harm. And yet I find more and more elders that are addressing those issues in their individual congregations because they're aware that there is a real danger that we never used to ever would even give a thought to.
Let's see, now, Kate, let's build on what you just said there, because that fear factor, that paranoia factor, and you guys haven't been in war.
Right. Oh, right.
So let's back up 50 years. You know, you didn't lock your doors.
Right.
You didn't do any of that stuff. You didn't have to worry about your child going into the bathroom and the transgender dude there.
Yeah.
You got a generation that's shoving homosexuality down your throat. You've got a government right now, administration's in total absolute chaos, failure. So do you think there's not some vulnerabilities there?
Oh, sure. Sure, absolutely.
I mean, but you've got all these zombies walking around here that's like, it ain't going to happen to me.
Right.
No, it's not going to happen to you. Yes,
right.
it is going to happen to you.
Right.
It will happen.
Yeah.
It might not get you personally, but it will affect you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad but true. What with the PTSD, as if I understand correctly, there is no cure per se. So is it a matter of learning to manage?
It is.
It's a matter of learning to live with the PTSD and manage it?
It is, and it's you start identifying your own personal triggers.
Mm-hmm. What sets you off?
Yeah, yours are mine. Like I said from the beginning, we'll have some common denominators, but we're going to have different things. I mean, this guy that I was watching on a series, he looked like a strong young man, and he started crying. You could tell. I could tell. They'd been days that he'd pull the shades back and just sit in a dark room and cry. Right. I haven't been there. Mine sort of goes the other way. I'm driven by I'm going to win. And no matter what it is, I'm going to win. And that's you'll find that drive in a lot of senior level officers like myself, because we have so much responsibility and so many other people, thousands sometimes, that's in our charge. It's in our
right.
responsibility. Right. So that given, we don't have a lot of time to sit in our own pity pool, because we got so many others to worry about.
Right.
But then when that time comes, you know, you sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and say, you know, I'm not going to stay in this spot right here. I'm going to, but you can't keep doing that by yourself. You got to have an outlet, and that's talking. That's telling somebody. That's I spoke about this earlier. One of my biggest things is driving. Dealing with stupid people, and I know this is this program, it's a Christian program, but I don't do politically correct. They're out there, right. And it's just here's what's so sad. It's like in my heart, my deepest heart goes out to all these policemen and their families that's been assassinated. You know, what they do every day to put their life on the line, and that's a whole different kind of PTSD
yes.
that I don't deal with right here. Just because he puts his uniform on, he's got a target on his back.
Yes.
But you know, I mean, think about that. Think about that. Where we're at and what we're doing right now.
And you know, a lot of cities have on the side of their police cars, it has printed to protect and serve.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of those good people who've been willing to lay themselves out for us, and somebody, well, I don't remember who was making the speeches recently about these people who run to the harm rather than away from the harm, and describing our law enforcement people. And a lot of people don't realize that those law enforcement people, paramedics, first responders, the post-traumatic stress disorder is a major issue for those people, because they see the trauma they see the bodies, not in Iraq where you spent your time and on the battleground, but in our streets, whether it's from a shooting or from a car accident or whatever it may be. So those triggers, how do you learn to identify the triggers?
Let me caveat on what you just said, because that's broad, and here again, it's another 50 years going back. These first responders, the people that do throw their life on the line every day, see, from being in a war for 15 years here, there's a lot of tactics that's been developed, and you know, you see it play out. Your average dummy, you know, he's like, well, that's on the news, you know, let's switch it over to Homer Simpson. You know, you look at some of these now, they call in, there's a fire. You know, the fire truck runs out, the paramedics come out, you know, and then you find out, like in Baton Rouge, I just got set up in an ambush.
Yeah.
That's the same tactic that the Taliban, the Al Qaeda, same way after they learned, one IED here, let's blow the convoy up. Then see, they quit doing that. They would let 3 or 4 trucks roll on, blow the middle up, and then they start shooting at everybody coming out. Mm-hmm. So you can see these battlefield tactics being brought to the United States. Mm-hmm. So we're in a different world.
Yeah,
people need to wake up.
For sure. So let me go back to my question. How does a person struggling with PTSD, how do you go about identifying those triggers, those things that make you explode?
Talking to somebody. You gotta talk to somebody that knows, somebody that's qualified. Group therapy is huge, a huge success. You remember we talked about the MASK program. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that I've learned from some of these kids being in these groups, age difference and everything, and how they handle it. And I struggle a lot with thinking about how I would handle this if I was 18 or 20 years old. Be way different than the way I handle it now.
Yeah, sure.
They're like, you know, I don't know if we touched on this or not, but it's after World War II, the motorcycle population rose in thousands and thousands, and you see it now. The young guys, they ride a lot of the suicide bikes, they're called, but they're trying to find that high. They're trying to find that adrenaline rush that took them there, and this is what I'm doing. I think I can speak for probably 90% of them, and myself included. If they loaded the bus up here today to go back to Afghanistan or Iraq, we'd go. Yeah. I'd go, because that's home. Yeah. But now you come back here, and you're trying to find that high. It's a high.
Trying to satisfy the addiction.
Yeah, you're feeding a dragon.
Yeah.
And then that's where the fine line is. You got to control yourself. You got to find a way to control yourself. You got to mitigate relationships. You got to cater to, you know, and it's all, to me personally, and maybe I'm being a little selfish here, but I think it's all out of whack, because you got the soldier trying to cater and fit in to everybody and serve everybody and wait on there, keep everybody happy, and you're not the one that's been there. Right. You haven't been through it. Right. So
we typically, I think I'm safe in saying, we, the American public, we don't see that veteran coming home with PTSD. We don't see him as a victim.
No, he's a big, tough soldier. Yeah, I've had it said to me.
Exactly.
I've had it said to me, you're a big, tough soldier. Yeah. Your body parts, my body parts are the same. We're made up the same. If God created us different, then, you know, it would have been that way.
And so once you identify those triggers, is it a matter of just avoiding those triggers, or is it a matter of learning how to deal with that trigger?
It's a combination of both. a lot that I recognize I try to avoid. The stupid people that I know are going to ask stupid things, I'll go way out of my way to keep from going around. Driving, I keep coming back to that because I got the verbal finger language 3 times coming up here today, and I'm thinking, none of them had a veterans plate on.
Yeah,
none of them.
sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And that's hard. It's hard to avoid everything, Roger. You can't run and hide from everything.
Because that was going to be my next question.
And that's where some of these guys do. They go underground. You remember the guy in Guyana? He was talking about his brother, pilot. Right. He just sits home with the shades down and drinks. Yeah. That's what he's going to do. He's going. He ain't going to. He may or may not, but the odds are not that he's going to put a gun in his head. But he's going to kill himself by just drugging out or whatever.
Right. Being this is our last program, and one of the things I would like for you to do is just kind of lay it out there, especially to those that maybe might see this program, who maybe are suffering from PTSD and either haven't dealt with it or acknowledged it, and if you can, maybe some also to families of those who are struggling with PTSD.
Well, first of all, I would say you're not a failure. You failed in some areas, struggling with this stuff, but go get help. Open yourself up, put your pride in your pocket, and find somebody to help. Find some brothers and sisters that's been in combat. They understand your language, they understand your feelings, they understand what you're going through. And then, get in group therapy. Do whatever it takes, but keep trying. Don't quit trying. I get bent out of shape when people beating somebody down because they're struggling with drinking, or they're struggling with smoking cigarettes or drugs or whatever it is. You don't never quit trying to quit. You keep on. You keep on. But it's funny how so many people, Christians, families, they get up in that judgment throne, and Roger, you need to stay away from that, way far away from that.
Right.
But families need to educate themselves, right. And I mean in depth, because when it's obvious, when you send little Johnny off, and he's a sweet little blue-eyed kid, and when he comes back, he's ready to tear the house down all the time. Nobody can't talk to him. He just keeps walking away. He's hitting stuff, tearing stuff up, screaming, yelling, runs the stop sign, whatever it is. If you can't figure out there's something wrong, and you quit, and you as the family, you quit trying to shove your agenda down his throat and get it back the way it used to be, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, right.
So the same way you're asking me how I deal with my triggers or what sets me off is the same way they need to look at it is learn something, pay attention. We don't pay attention no more. You know that? We don't.
Yeah, it's all about me.
We going through this drone life and yes, it's all about me. We don't pay no attention, and the signs, the signals, the warnings are all around you.
To your knowledge, are there some of the therapies that include the families?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I mean,
the VA has several programs. There's a lot of private programs. There's church programs. I mentioned Johnny Trail last night. He's a Christian counselor. Fine man. Lots of people like that could help. Yeah. Solidify and help keep your feet on the Christian foundation. But it don't help a preacher talking to me about that's never been there and never done that. Right. So it's a combination of things. Right. But I would say most of all, overall, it's what's got me out, sustained me so far. I'm not going to sit here and say I won't fall down tomorrow. Right. I'll get back up and I'll keep trying, but I won't quit. But get into the church. Find you a good church, Church of Christ with good elders, solid church, good elders that knows how to run a church according to the doctrine of the Bible. I'm very honored and humbled. I go to Willett Church Christ, and fascinating bunch of people, and the way they shepherd that church. And you'll grow strong, and you got people that loves you and people that cares. And you know what? It's funny to say sometimes how it's outside people, outside of your family, and like you.
Well, sometimes we're too close.
Well, we're too close, but while you're too close, you're taking that ride for granted.
Yeah.
We take too much for granted. We take people for granted that you're going to be here, and you're going to have opportunity tomorrow to talk to them about God, and,
right.
and you're going to have this your chance, and you're going no. But there's a combination of things, but in the end, you're not going to go wrong by getting in church.
Amen. And I know, I can speak for our congregation, and I'm sure others. I may not know how, as a preacher, I'm not trained to how to help someone with PTSD, but I know how to get on a phone or the internet
Correct.
and find the help that's available. Yep. And I don't mind saying, sometimes with we preachers, there's a pride element involved too, that we sometimes get the notion that we can solve anybody's problem.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't know where to begin with someone.
That's an excellent point, because you got a bunch of preachers that live in a bubble.
Yeah, we do.
And you don't need to be doing that.
Yeah. But the help is available. That's key. And I appreciate you. And I said earlier, exposing yourself, opening yourself up to share with others the journey that you've been on. And I appreciate what you said just a moment ago, that you realize that, and I think that's maybe a part of the help, is you said you realize that I might fall tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And that realization.
So could you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so could all them in the audience that's got the stars in their crown and sitting on a throne.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to wrap this up, and I want to do that by saying to our audience, as we often do, CDs and are available of these programs that we've done, of all of our programs, but these in particular. I believe this is the 6th program that we've done, and you can get those by contacting GBN or contacting me, and we'll be happy to provide those to you at absolutely no cost. Also, I want to make sure that we make available, or make you understand that Brother Ricky has offered his services. If you're the congregation where you worship, and with your elders' approval, if you would like for him to come and speak to the congregation, he is willing to do that. And I appreciate his willingness just to do that. And so as we wrap up these programs, let me close by this one thing. We pray that you'll have a great day.